If I gave you $100,000 today, how would you spend it? I mean, can you even imagine that? Maybe that's hard to believe. You have $100K in cash in a briefcase. I mean, is your mind racing yet? Like, what would you do with that money? Maybe you'd buy a new sports car. $100,000, I don't think will get you a nice Lambo, but you could get a pretty nice sports car with $100K. I read a couple days ago the average price of new cars just passed $50,000. That's the average, which that seems pretty crazy to me. Some would upgrade their phone, their TV, get the brand new PlayStation and tons of other electronic devices and the ultimate gaming system. Maybe you might take a well-deserved vacation, the vacation of a lifetime. And yet, within a few months, for most people, the majority of that $100,000 would be gone. I mean, maybe all of it. And you'd have nothing left to show for it, or very little to show for it, like a sports car that's worth a lot less than when you drove it off the car lot. Why do you have so little to show for it? Well, it's not because you spent it foolishly. It's not like you went out and gambled it all away or played the lottery, but it's because you invested it in the wrong direction. You see, wealthy people tend to think differently about money than most of the rest of the world. They put their money into things that appreciate. We sometimes call these appreciating assets, things that get more valuable with time, something that's going to be worth more next year than it is now and way more 5 years from now or 10 years from now. The middle class and the poor often put their money into things that depreciate. And here's the shocking part. You don't necessarily have to make more money to get wealthy. You just have to change what you do with the money that you already have. So today I want to talk with you, about how to stop losing wealth and start building it. I want to talk about this biblically, practically, and hopefully permanently, right? There are really only two types of assets in the world, appreciating and depreciating. Now that's a bit of an oversimplification because some things stay about the same, but for the sake of simplicity, there are certain things that grow more valuable with age, and there are certain things that lose value over time, right? An appreciating asset grows in value over time. A depreciating asset loses value the moment you buy it. Sometimes things that appreciate, I like to call them assets, and things that depreciate, I like to call toys. Let me give you a simple example. A rental property that pays you rent every single month, that's appreciating. Land and real estate almost always appreciate, at least in the US. I have limited holdings internationally, but I think even worldwide, for the most part, real estate tends to go up in value. A brand new car that drops 20% in value the second you drive it off the lot, depreciating. A broad market ETF, an exchange traded fund like the Vanguard Total Index or VTI that tracks the stock market, appreciating. Most of the time, the stock market historically has gone up, especially if you hold it over a long period of time. Brand new furniture or a brand new wardrobe, depreciating. Those clothes you buy today almost certainly are going to be worth less 5 or 10 years from now. Same thing with furniture. It sounds really simple, doesn't it? But this single distinction separates the wealthy from the broke. Proverbs 21:20 says, "The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down." The wealthy store and invest in things that last. That's biblical wisdom. The poor often consume what they have, thinking they're treating themselves, but they're actually eating tomorrow's harvest. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells the parable of the talents. You know it well if you've read through the Bible. The master gives 5 talents to one servant, 2 to another, and 1 to another. Now, I want to briefly explain the word talent is not like what we think of with America's Got Talent. In the Old Testament, the word talent appears when describing how much gold the Israelites used to build the tabernacle. It was a unit of measurement for weighing precious metals like silver and gold. It weighed about 75 pounds. In the New Testament, the word meant something different. It was a large monetary measurement equal to 6,000 denarii. And you're like, that doesn't help, right? I mean, it was the largest unit of currency at that time. The denarius, which was not the largest, was a standard silver Roman coin equal to a day's wage. The Romans, remember, were ruling over Jerusalem at the time of Jesus, so their minted coins were in use there, the denarii. So a talent is what an average worker could earn in 6,000 days. That's a lot of money. Back to our story about the wealthy man who leaves 5 talents to one servant, 2 to another servant, and 1 to another. He's leaving them a significant sum of money for them to invest while he's away. The first 2, if you remember the story, invested and multiplied what they had. The last guy, he buried his talent. And when the master returned, he didn't say to the last guy, "Hey, good job playing it safe." He complimented the first 2, but to the last guy, he said, "You wicked and lazy servant." Ouch. Ouch. He says, you should have invested what I gave you. Why? Because God expects multiplication, not preservation. God doesn't bless fear. He blesses stewardship. And stewardship isn't just about tithing. It's about what you do with the 90% after you tithe. And so I think it is appropriate, even though in Matthew 25, talent was talking about a monetary amount, we can use it today to refer to many different things that God has given us. Are we investing those for eternity? Are we being wise stewards, or are we hoarding them for ourselves? Let's talk about the traps, the depreciating assets that quietly drain your future. Have you ever noticed how many people finance cars they can't afford? They make $50,000 a year, but they drive a $60,000 vehicle. Maybe they call it a reward for working hard, but in reality, they're renting a lifestyle from a bank. You know that young couple who bought 2 brand new SUVs right after their wedding, but 5 years later, both cars had lost half their value? Meanwhile, their savings account hadn't grown $1. Contrast that with a friend who drives a used Toyota and invests every spare penny into rental houses. 10 or 15 years later, his boring cars have outlasted multiple trendy models, and he's got over $4 million in appreciating assets worth of real estate. Same income, totally different mindset. Here's where the shift really happens. You stop asking, can I afford this payment? And start asking, will this purchase grow or shrink my net worth? The wealthy don't think in terms of monthly payments. They think in terms of long-term growth. And I hesitate even to talk about net worth because your net worth as an individual is way more than the money that you're worth on paper, right? Like if you have a loving family and a relationship with the Lord and your own physical health, all those things are worth more than money. But if we're talking about from a financial standpoint, wealthy people tend to look at what is going to grow their net worth and appreciate over time versus what are they just going to spend and it's going to be gone. They ask, will this make me money while I sleep? Will this asset still hold value 10 years from now? Will this bless others beyond my lifetime? So many people look at wealthy people and assume that they're greedy, but it's not. It can be greed for sure, but it's not always greed. It's often wisdom. Because when you grow what God entrusts to you, you're able to bless more people. You're able to fund more missions. You're able to give more generously. You're able to spend additional time with your family. And it's not just about money. There are depreciating assets in your life. If you spend all your time scrolling social media, that's depreciating. If you invest your time mentoring others or deepening your relationship with your spouse or your kids, that's appreciating. That's investing for the future. If you pour your energy into resentment or gossip, that's depreciating. If you pour your energy into prayer, gratitude, learning, that's appreciating. Even your habits can appreciate or depreciate. A $5 latte a day doesn't seem like much, but over 10 years, that's over $18,000 gone, not even counting the interest you could have earned. But reading the Bible 15 minutes a day, that's compounding wisdom that will grow for eternity. Let me make this tangible with a few examples. Carl used to buy everything brand new trucks, new gadgets, new furniture, but one day he realized his stuff was shiny, but he was all maxed out. He was in debt and he was stressed. Carl started selling off all of his toys and his gear, and he bought his first duplex instead. 5 years later, the rent from that duplex pays his mortgage. He calls it his sleep fund because it earns money while he sleeps. Or take a young pastor with a small salary but a big heart. Instead of buying a fancy new car, he started buying books and courses. He said, if I can't afford a raise, I'll give myself a return on wisdom. And now that young pastor teaches leadership workshops that bring in extra income and bless other leaders in other churches. You can do the same. You can start investing in things that appreciate. A rental property, a small business. Buy a really small business. It might be $5,000 or $10,000. I mean, often when I think in terms of buying businesses, it's usually between $100,000 and a couple million, but there are very small businesses that almost anyone could afford to buy. A skill that makes you more valuable. That's investing in something that appreciates. A book or mentorship that grows your mind. Even investing in your marriage, your kids, your team. Those are appreciating relationships. A couple hours before doing this video, I spent 2.5 hours reading through a stack of materials sent to me by Jerry, who's a new friend of mine. He's a Christian leader who's been very successful with a fairly well-known business. This leader, Jerry, and I can't give you too many details because I signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, but he's worked his finger to the bone to build 2 very large brands, one of which is internationally known. I've seen it numerous times in big stores like Walmart and grocery stores and so on. The other brand is newer. I'd actually never heard of it before, but he's developed quite a following for that brand as well. Jerry's getting up in years. He's ready to retire, and he's trying to find the right person to steward his businesses. I've had some conversations with him, and I'm looking forward to a visit, and he was gracious enough to send me boxes and boxes and boxes of his product, hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth, and just stacks of information to read about his businesses. And really in the future, I'm hoping to start a podcast and interview different Christian business leaders leaders, and Jerry is certainly one of the first guys I want to interview. As I was reading through all that information, his assets alone, tons of land, warehouses, machinery associated with his product, these assembly lines and so on, has been valued, and I was looking at numbers, well over $100 million just in those hard assets. And Jerry's asking $250 million for the purchase of both of his businesses and wants to sell them to the right person. Now, I'm not sure that I'm the right fit. I'm busy with 5 kids and so on to steward his businesses. I've been really upfront with Jerry about that. And if I were to try to do this, it'd be the largest business acquisition I've made. But I am planning to take my family to North Carolina and explore more closely. So Jerry's a very successful business person. And why am I telling you that? Well, from everything I can tell, Jerry hates buying depreciating assets. He's bought a lot of land. He's bought a lot of warehouses. He's really invested in previous companies, but especially in these 2. I mean, just tens of millions of dollars in patents and other things. I was talking with a mutual friend about Jerry. He knows Jerry better than me. He's the one who introduced us. And the friend told me that Jerry does not understand people who buy new vehicles. Jerry still drives, I think my friend said it's a Plymouth that's more than 20 years old, maybe like 26 years old. And he says, of course I drive it. It still runs. Why wouldn't I drive it? I mean, here's a guy who's in the process of selling a couple of businesses for $250 million. That's his asking price. But his car is probably worth less than $1,000. See, he's learned to invest in appreciating assets, not depreciating assets. How about you? Let's be honest. Sometimes we justify dumb purchases with spiritual language. We say things like, I just felt led to buy that new boat. Or God wants me to enjoy life, right? So I had to buy it. Sure, God gives us all things to enjoy. And I don't want to make you feel guilty about taking your family out to eat or some wonderful thing like that, which you should do. That's investing in that relationship. But God also calls us to wisdom. If you can't afford to tithe, but you can afford the biggest sports package on cable, something's depreciating. If you can't bless a missionary, but you can buy the newest iPhone, something's off. Wealth isn't about guilt. It's about alignment, aligning your spending with your calling. Let's try to make this really practical. I want to give you 5 key steps. So as you look at these 5 key steps, number 1 is to track where your money is going. You can't manage what you don't measure. You cannot manage what you don't measure. For 30 days, write down every expense. You'll probably be shocked. Number 2, categorize everything as you write it down. Is it appreciating or depreciating? Basically just ask, does this go up in value or down in value? Now you've written what you're spending your money on. You're categorizing it. Does it go up or down? Number 3, create a freedom fund. You don't have to call it that. You can call it something else, but start setting aside money to buy assets, not toys. Remember, an asset, I like to use that term for something that grows in value versus a toy would be a depreciating asset or something that loses value. Number 4, automate your investing. Automate investing. Even if it's $100 a month into a broad market ETF, which I'm hoping to do further YouTube videos on the simplest way to do that. How do you open up an account? What would be something like VTI or VOO or something you could invest in that would just kind of give you a piece of the whole stock market? Maybe it's a rental savings account to buy a rental property. Maybe it's a retirement account, but in some way, automate your investing, right? So that was number 4. Number 5, invest in people. Your network, your kids, your marriage, your church, those are eternal returns. Those might not show up in your financial net worth, but they're much more valuable than that, right? Invest in people. Remember, every dollar that you spend is a seed. Plant it in soil that grows. Don't throw it away. Let's end with a kingdom truth. Jesus said in Matthew 6:19-21, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, but store up treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So yes, invest wisely on earth. Absolutely. That's what this is about. But never forget, the ultimate appreciating asset is a life invested in eternity. Your greatest ROI will never be a stock portfolio. It will be hearing, well done, good and faithful servant, and hearing that from Jesus himself, the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords. So stop buying what fades and start building what lasts, because wealth isn't about what you have. It's about how you steward this short little life that God's given you. Focus on appreciating assets, not depreciating toys. Thanks so much for your time and watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoy this, you can give it a like, you can subscribe to my channel, you can share it with someone else. Thank you again, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.